the Zoomathon. I'll start again. Welcome everyone to the Zoomathon. We're really excited to have you with us. As you see, we already have volunteers making calls. We are going to start out by telling you about the work we do. So go ahead, Ren.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ren Manning. I use they, them, AE pronouns, and it is my honor to have served as the co-director, director of education for BorderLinks for the last 5 years. Imagine with me for a moment when we win. Freedom of movement for all. Everyone in the borderlands thriving. Let this feeling sink into your bones. Our vision is to make this future possible. In the face of violence, militarism, deadly conditions, the way through is sometimes overwhelming, but vision guides us. For 38 years, our educational programs have built strong, strategic movements for migrant justice. BorderLinks trains over 600 people a year through collaboration with 40 community partners, from humanitarian and direct aid to community organizing and direct action. We host events and workshops and week-long immersions. Our building is space for many beautiful Indigenous, Palestinian, and migrant-led projects. Our participants learn from the expertise of migrants, the history of racism and white supremacy in the deportation system, and they understand what's at stake by visiting surveillance towers, walls, and the desert. They feel possibility and they create action plans. That spark ignites transformations. Participants continue to build campaigns, stop deportations, change legislation, and protect basic rights. BorderLinks is a member in local and national coalitions for deportation defense, because together we are more powerful. So any amount you all give today, or for our volunteers, those that you are raising, is an investment in visionary organizing. It will enable BorderLinks to strengthen our national network and create lasting change. I feel a deep joy and love for our people, and I believe that together, freedom for migrants is possible. At BorderLinks, we see, we think, we act. Vemos, pensamos, actuamos. Join us. And now I'll pass it back to Tania.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Ren. Well, as you all know, my name is Tania. I'm one of the co-directors at BorderLinks, operations director to be more specific. I use she and they pronouns. I have been working for BorderLinks since May of 2015, so it's been a while. I recognize that leading BorderLinks during these times can be scary. Not having enough delegations because of fear, misinformation, having less donors because they might be alarmed. The panic I feel in the pit of my stomach to be added to blacklists, especially because I'm a single mom. All the unseen consequences that this can bring about. However, I can't forget the courageous 15-year-old that crossed the border between Juarez and El Paso by herself, just with an old birth certificate. I can't forget the pro-immigrant movement that happened in 2006 in Los Angeles, the fight that Tucson put up when they passed SB 1070. My community didn't hide, didn't stop existing, but actually learned how to reorganize once again, and did what was needed. We are not ones to stay silent. BorderLinks will not be an organization that will stay still, and I will not be quiet to comply with an authoritarian government, now or ever. And now I'll pass this again.
Buckle in, folks. Thank you so much, Tania. Now we are going to hear from 2 BorderLinks supporters and then have interviews with our guests, Cristina Jiménez Moreta and Guadalupe Carrasco Cardona. And in the middle, we'll check in with our volunteers and share an update of what we've raised so far. As Laura mentioned, once we reach 10,000, Tania and I have agreed to do an ice bucket challenge, an embodied example of what's in front of us, to melt ice. So if that's some extra motivation today, there you go. Now it is our pleasure to introduce Kitty Ufford-Chase, a supporter of BorderLinks for 38 years and an active advocate for migrant and labor justice. Kitty.
Hi, you all, or I should say from Vermont. Good evening. And I'm really glad to see you all there and to know that the reach of BorderLinks reaches around the country and around the world. And the work of BorderLinks has never stopped. And what has impressed me so much about this organization over the years is how it has moved with the times. I remember early on when I was working for BorderLinks back in 1989, dare I say it out loud, that every year we would have our BorderLinks committee, like our board of directors, would meet, and we would start from the beginning. We would look at what are the signs of the times? How do we need to change? What's new? What do we have to keep going? What do we have to shift? And I just have found that that's what BorderLinks has been able to carry through all these many years in trying to confront some of the things that are still the same, the militarization, the violence, the dehumanization, the exclusion, the pain and the suffering. I mean, it's all still there, but also what is still there is that community and the faith and the belief in the community and what Ren put forward in terms of the dream. And boy, I closed my eyes and I could see that dream. And I know that BorderLinks is playing such a critical, important role in reaching out to those who need to become advocates. And sometimes they choose to come on a BorderLinks trip, and sometimes they're just part of a group that they have to come on a BorderLinks trip. And we reach them all, and we base our education in experiment and in human connection and taking big issues and making it into human people, because that's who's impacted every day. So I am full of admiration of BorderLinks. I'm glad to be here with you all, and I am excited about this creative effort to raise money for such a great program. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us, Kitty, and for your words. It really is an honor. I think right now what we'll do is we'll turn directly to one of our very special guests, Cristina Jiménez Moreta. I hope you'll join me in welcoming her to the meeting and to this fundraiser. She's very graciously agreed to join us for a few minutes here to discuss her work in the migrant justice movement, as well as paths and priorities forward, etc. I will just share a little bit about her. Cristina Jiménez Moreta is an award-winning community organizer, best-selling author, and a leading voice in movements for social justice. She is co-founder and the former executive director of United We Dream, the largest immigrant youth-led organization in the country. Cristina has led multiple national and local campaigns for immigrant justice, playing a leadership role in the campaign to win and implement the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program that we all know as DACA. She's also a distinguished lecturer at the City University of New York. She was awarded a MacArthur Genius Fellowship, if you've ever heard of that, and was named one of Time 100's most influential people. Her USA Today bestselling debut memoir, Dreaming of Home, was published just recently in May of 2025. She came to the United States from Ecuador in 1998 and grew up undocumented in Queens, New York. So I hope you'll all join me in welcoming Cristina to this meeting. And if it's all right with you, Cristina, I will just start with the first question. So this is a moment when this question of how we turn fear into power, as you framed it in your book, couldn't be more urgent or more difficult. For anyone who hasn't yet read your book, or perhaps they have, but they're feeling, really overwhelmed and just disoriented in this moment. What are some lessons from your book that you would especially want to highlight for us at this time? How do we manage fear and continue to build power?
Well, hello, everyone. I am joining you from New York. So really It is a true honor to join you. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. And it's always been inspiring. And I am really grateful to the connection that my sister friend Tracy Peterson played here. So grateful for you, your work, Tracy. And yeah, just feel really humbled to be in this space with all of you who are leading this important work. My pronouns are she, her. And I'll get right into it because it's just such a hard time. It is like such a difficult time. I'm just holding that. So I know all of us are holding so much grief, pain, outrage in this moment, as we also hold hope in community like the spaces like today. So I hope both. And to your question about fear, I am traveling across the country sharing Dreaming of Home and this story. And I get the question a lot, like how do we overcome the fear? How do we and how do people like me sort of navigate it or explore it? And what I'm sharing, it's just very honestly that I feel like even when folks like myself who have gone through the journey of being undocumented and then getting some kind of documents, and then like me being now a naturalized citizen, the fear doesn't go away. The fear doesn't go away. It stays in your body. The way that the systems that the law, which we know are all rooted um, in anti-blackness, in the long legacy of colonialism and just slavery, racism. Like this entire system was designed to do exactly what it's doing to communities across the country. So, people like me and many others that have experienced that kind of oppression systematically with many of our systems and institutions and laws, I feel like the fear never goes away. But this is why I wrote Dreaming of Home, to share it with people as a guide, not for how we lose fear, because it would always perhaps be there in some way, but how we move through it and how we can transform it through taking action, and through being in community, which was what happened to me. I grew up very afraid of being undocumented because of the threat of ICE and separation of my parents and deportation. Because any interaction with a school, with police in our neighborhoods could lead to racial profiling, could lead to a deportation. And that was the case even before this moment that we're in. Um, and I also grew up with a lot of shame for being an immigrant, for having an accent, for looking the way that I looked in this country, because so much of the ideas and the media and the culture around us, right? It's about um, um, that these like false racial structure and hierarchy that puts white people at the top. And so the only way that I was able to transform from that place of fear and shame is because I met post September 11, which marks in our history as a country a rise in detentions and deportations. It was when the Department of Homeland Security was created under the set of policies to fight terrorism, right? Where immigrants were moved to really be framed as a threat to national security. And in that moment of so much fear, we were seeing eyes everywhere, places like Arizona. It was post 9/11 where like SB 1070, right, gets passed. Um, it was also there where I met undocumented young people like myself and their families who were courageously fighting deportations. But the thing that I will say that it's so important is that they weren't alone. They had a community with them. Immigrants, non-immigrants, teachers, faith leaders, neighbors, many people that were with them fighting deportations. And when I saw them fighting, I remember Marie Gonzalez, and I shared the story of her book as like one of the first stories of undocumented people fighting these deportations openly in the public, putting themselves at risk. One, I thought I could be the next Marie and my family could be next. But then the second thing that I thought was we were in New York holding a rally to defend Marie outside of Federal Plaza, which is where immigration makes decisions about people's cases. And I thought I could either disappear and nobody will know if I get deported, if I get targeted, or I could be part of a community and I will have people like myself and many others who were at that rally fighting for me and my family. And that's when my fear transformed to feeling in solidarity and not alone, but also more confident and powerful that in community we could stop deportations, we could fight back. And even in the conditions that we're in right now, which are so scary, we are seeing how the power of community taking action is also winning the release of many folks that are getting targeted and trapped in this deportation machine. So, long with this to say the fear doesn't go away, but in community, I think that we can move through it and we can create change.
Thank you so much for that. Looking, looking ahead, I would really love to know how you think or what you think are sort of the strategic and tactical priorities for the immigrant justice movement right now, based on your experiences.
Mhm. I think that there is a long arc of work. When I think about the work, so important to think about our vision and long term. And I appreciated, I think, Ren, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name accurately. At the beginning, when I joined, you were situating us in a vision of the world that we hold, of justice, of, a place where we all belong, and of justice in the borderlands. And for me, like that, that's a vision I feel part of. I hold that. I know that that's the long arc of where we want to go and what sustains us to keep going. And I also know that this is a very scary moment where we're in. So how do we make what's the bridge that connects us from where we are right now to that long-term vision that we have? And I will say that the most important thing I'm sharing with a lot of the organizers that I'm supporting and training, and the campaign efforts that I'm involved in right now to for immigrant justice work, is that it's so important for us to understand and be sober that folks in power right now are using immigrants and immigration, and also this like false narrative about crime, to advance their authoritarian vision for the country. So it's using immigrants and immigration not to solve the challenges or the injustices of a system, but to use it to build more power and to test how far they can go. I mean, we've seen this administration time after time ignoring Supreme Court decisions or other court decisions related to immigration. So there's a real testing of this overreach of power and how much power this current administration can accumulate. And then there's also the role of all of those that are profiting from all of the injustice and the detention and the incarceration of people. The last couple of days, I have been deep with folks in Chicago, right, that are realizing this is not about legal status. It's really about weaponizing our resources, our taxpaying dollars, and all of the federal institutions and apparatus to go after poor and working class Black and brown people. So, the biggest thing for me on this question, Lauren, is that we actually don't make it only about immigration, because it's not. And if we keep making this conversation and corner it as if it's like, oh, it's like another siloed issue of immigrants and immigration, a lot of people get to say like, oh, that doesn't impact me because I'm not an immigrant. But in the reality is, as we're seeing across the country, is that this is impacting everybody. It's impacting everybody because folks in power right now are using immigration and immigrants as a way to destroy democratic institutions, as a way to build authoritarian power. Um, and I think that that's a threat to all of us. So, I'm not here to say, oh, we should fight for XYZ policy, because I have been working on policy change for over 25 years at the state level, at the national level. And I could tell you that we're not missing ideas and policy solutions. What we have been missing is the political will to actually get these changes passed and the transformations that we need to see in these systems and the new systems that we need to build, really. Um, there's a lack of political will. Um, and also, there's no such thing as us having a conversation about policy ideas or policy agendas if you are under authoritarian rule. So I share that to say that, like, I don't think that this is a moment for us to think about policy solutions. But what I think it's next is that we collectively should look at this moment not just as the moment where immigrants are getting attacked, but as the moment where the majority of Americans are being attacked, and when the country is going through a key turning point and a decision that we hold as the people in this country of whether we support a vision of the country that it's, white supremacist and authoritarian, or a multiracial democracy where all of us can belong, and be part of it. And those are very two drastic different visions. And so I think that the most important thing is for us, all of us, to soberly know where we are in this moment, and to know that with each other in solidarity together, it's the only way that we're going to be able to overcome this moment, again, not just for immigrants, but for the entire country.
Thank you so much. I mean, I love this call for a sort of coalitional movement building and coalitional organizing. I also love the way that you are, pushing the analysis. It's not enough to just say that immigrants are being scapegoated in this moment, which would be bad enough, and which we're quite used to happening. But by focusing us on the way that what's happening within immigration policy, if we can even call it that, to your point, is actually very central to sort of the machinations of power consolidation in general, in a way that implicates and impacts all of us. Do you have time for just one more question, or do we need to leave you? Okay. All right, great.
Yes,
I guess
absolutely, absolutely.
wonderful. Thank you so much. Where I wanted to end it was that, as you know, a big part of our mission is popular political education, right? And I was curious to hear a bit about how, in your long your life of organizing, what role that political education, this work of cultivating a shared critical understanding and perspective on the historical and structural conditions of where we are now, what role has that played in your organizing?
It is so critical, because I think about me growing up and having and internalizing all of these lies, right? So I'll share some of them, that because I'm an immigrant, I have no rights and I don't deserve to ask for them. That that being an immigrant, somehow it's a bad thing, and I should hold shame for that. Or the lie that we don't have power. And I think many of us, feel that in some way. And the only way that I was able to shed those lies that I had internalized one, it was community. It was being part of a community that inspired me to even see things in myself that I couldn't see before. And that happened through fighting back, deportations or fighting against deportations. But it also happened in many of my trainings, and in the book, I share the story of my first training. And in my first training, I remember these youth trainers that did this exercise of understanding the country's history with immigration policy and politics, and to see the way, of the evolution of the Chinese Exclusion Act and other exclusions, and just to see the buildup of that, but at the same time to see the resistance and the movements that fought back, and including the propositions in California, and what a turning point that was for California organizing. So I believe that political education plays such a big role in in me becoming a really an organizer. And so I think that it's so critical. And at the same time, in a lot of the trainings and the coaching that I do with organizers today, I remind them that the work of an organizer is to be able to meet people where they're at, and to be able to then take them through that journey of learning, not only the political education, but also learning about themselves, loving themselves, believing in their own power, believing in the power of community, and getting to experience that. And so, like remembering that it is a journey, and that, when we're organizing, we have to meet people where they are, even when they, may not be at a place where we want them to be. Like, I know for me, in my organizing and my work with like my own community, I have people who are Latin American immigrants who um, became so against the new generations, or the newcomers that were coming and migrating in the last couple of years. And I had to meet them where they were, because I wanted to organize them. I didn't want to be like, oh, I don't want to talk to them because they don't agree with me already. And I think that's so much of the moment that we're in right now. We have such an opening, as people are opening their eyes to see how ICE is operating, and how they're targeting Black, Brown communities regardless of status. We have an opening to engage people. So the political education is part of the work, but we got to first meet people where they're at, and then be able to walk with them through that journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, and as you say, the more difficult parts, but the most important, and to create sort of lasting movements. Thank you so much for taking this time. I know it's a bit later where you're at, so we're happy to let you carry on with your evening, but it really meant so much to all of us to have you join us and bring more awareness to our fundraiser.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for the work. I'll be making a donation too, all of us.
Thank you so much.
It's about community.
Mm-hmm.
We will get through this together, and it is through these spaces, with our time, with our volunteer, with our money, that we
Mm-hmm.
will get to support our efforts. So, sending you the best of energies for the fundraising, for the work that you're doing, and so grateful to everyone here who is committed to supporting BorderLinks.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we are about to pivot to checking in, but before we do, I wanted to include I wanted to one of our supporters who is behind this exciting matching gift recorded a little video to share with us to help us understand why they continue to support BorderLinks through thick and thin. So I'm wondering, Kaylin, it's in the drive, or do you think you're able to pull that up for us? And then we can share the screen. And for those of you who can hear my voice, this would be also kind of your signal to begin pivoting back towards us so that we can check in about how the fundraising's been going. We are about to clear $3,000 too. I can see, we're just a couple $100 away. Okay, here we are. I don't think the sound's working yet. Okay.
Sorry, just a second. My computer's having a hard time.
It's okay. It's a lot of data. Okay, well, I'll just vamp for a minute while we're waiting. As I was saying, oh, now we're at 2,800. We just cleared $2,800. So, so we're making our way. That's very exciting. Thank you all for your work. Yeah, let me see here. So, while we wait to start this video, I wonder if anybody who's listening in on the chat right now wants to share. Oh, wait, here we are. Okay, hold that thought.
Big fans of BorderLinks since 2007, when Catherine and I went on a delegation with our church from Minnesota. What we learned about the history
From the
and
beginning.
policy and
Sorry, Caitlin.
politics. Hi,
Is
I'm
it supposed to
Deb.
be screen shared?
My wife Julie and daughter
It's
Catherine
not.
and I have been big
I don't
fans
think,
of
is it?
BorderLinks since 2007, when Catherine and I went on
Oh.
a delegation with our church from Minnesota. What we learned about the history and policies and politics of the border really made us think hard. And when we walked through the desert and heard the stories of our migrant neighbors on their very perilous journeys, well, that touched our hearts and changed our lives. In fact, after college, Catherine then went on to work at BorderLinks and lead those delegations. And Julie and I were blessed to be able to join her for one of those. The BorderLinks leadership has been terrific, strong and nimble, and getting through the pandemic, and then creating virtual workshops and seminars and speakers and events such as we're participating in today. We really appreciated when Ren spoke to our congregation last year. The BorderLinks mission has never been more important, given the chaos that our current U.S. administration has unleashed. That's why our family continues to support BorderLinks, and we hope you will too. Gracias.
Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you so much to Julie and Daryl for your robust and continued passionate support. So since we're running just a tad behind, I do want to make sure that we open the floor to anybody who has maybe any questions that have come up for you as you've been making phone calls, any success stories you want to share. If there's a couple people who want to pipe up and share something, that would be wonderful before we turn to our next guest.
I would love to jump in. Hi everyone. I unfortunately am not doing any of my phone calling right now because I've got a little one that I'm feeding dinner. So my calls are going to be happening later. I just wanted to say that that was about Catherine Losado, right? I believe so, because I remember her. I worked with her for a while. Is Daryl on the call?
Is on the call, but I'm at work, so I'm going to keep it a little quiet. But
Gotcha.
yes, that's Catherine Schmidt-Lozada, and she
Hi,
says
Margie.
tell everyone hello, and that's
Hi.
Julie.
It's Julie.
And
Hi.
we enjoyed your help with that visit as well, and just keep up your great work, everybody. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Awesome. So nice to make that connection, and completely understandable, Margie. So yeah, does anybody else have anything they'd like to check in about or to share before we move on? Let's see where we're at. Yeah, over $2,800. So things are happening. This is really something. Thank you all so much. Learning, Marissa says that she's learning that calling people actually works. Yes, that is really true, whether, sometimes in political agitating or with fundraisers, it can feel really uncomfortable. and like confrontational, even if it's just out of confusion. Yeah, sometimes you just kind of you blindside somebody and you might get a good result out of it. But yes, it is true. It's like uncomfortable and it takes practice, but it absolutely is. Making those connections is absolutely what leads to the results. Does anybody else want to share anything before we welcome our next guest? Okay, wonderful. Well, then I think I will turn it back over to Ren.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to introduce you all to Lupe, who just joined us with some beautiful artwork behind you as well. Yes. It was really good to meet you this summer, and thank you so much for joining us here today. I'll pass it over to you so you can introduce yourself, and then I have a few questions for you.
Hello, everyone. I am Lupe Carrasco Cardona, and my pronouns are she, her, ella. And I wear quite a few hats, but today I'm going to be speaking with the hat of the chair of the Association of Raza Educators in LA, and also as a member of Unión del Barrio.
Beautiful. Thank you. Some very inspiring organizing has come out of LA recently. Will you share with us some lessons about what has been effective in your
Sure.
rapid response organizing in the world of ethnic studies and resistance to ICE brutality?
Yeah, so it's honestly, it's ever changing and it's going to need to change a little bit more because the fascism is changing. The way that they're kidnapping people is changing as well. But essentially, my organization, Unión del Barrio, it was founded on the border in San Diego. And so since the 90s, they have seen the need to do like community patrolling early in the morning and sometimes throughout the day as well, or spot patrolling. Like if they get a phone call, they go out and, check on what's going on. And so we've seen since the 90s that it's very effective to, go out, use the bullhorn, what we've been seeing on, like social media, letting people in the area know that, there's ICE there, either staging or actually like harassing people. And then letting them know that we know the laws, right? So in some cases, like letting them, like if they're calling police in for backup, we're letting them know like what it is that they're violating, and getting anybody in the area who is able to come out and like speak out, and literally just the ICE leaves, right? Because they get outnumbered. They're people are seeing what they're doing. They're being recorded. So when, back in November, the writing was on the wall that it was going to be necessary to train as many people as possible to do that as well. And so that's when we started doing a couple of things. One was we called for a coalition. So there's a really large coalition in LA County called the Community Self-Defense Coalition, and it's many organizations, which is great because these organizations exist for different work, right? But the one thing that they or we have all come together in coalition for is protecting our communities against ICE terror. And so it's been beautiful to see all the organizations and all the individuals all over LA. So, we started organizing that November 24. And then, a lot of people don't know that we actually got hit pretty hard in LA in January, even before Trump took office. Like there was a pretty big, like several little raids at one time. So people don't, they don't, a lot of people think that this started like in June, like when it was hit really hard. But since January, the end of January, February, and all the way through, it was like consistent organizing. And I think a lot of what people don't know either is that it hasn't been just a indigenous Latino kind of organizing, right? Like that's usually what you see like on the news is who's being harassed and who's being picked up, and the narrative kind of stays in that kind of like that, very like the binary, right? But the reality is when we've been called out to do like patrolling and to go out and, you know, when they're staging, when we've gotten calls and we've gone out to places, they have been, you know, like we've seen, you know, different Asian groups. There have been like Black Haitians. There have, I mean, it's just been like, yes, you know, being that it's LA, it is a lot of like indigenous, you know, like Mexican, Central American, South American communities, but that's not all that it has been. And so some of the things, some of the lessons that we've learned is that, coalition is very it's, you know, it's a messy work because all these different organizations are organized in their own ways. Some of them are collectivized, some of them are like even nonprofit. Like there are all these different ways that they're organized and that they're used to working. So something that we had learned from organizing in the past, when we've done coalition work in the past, was that we wanted to make sure that each organization had an equal vote in decisions and that individuals could belong to the Community Self-Defense Coalition, but they didn't get a vote on things. And if they wanted to, they would have to join an organization. Okay. And so, and that's really important because, you know, you'll tend to see a lot of those, you know, folks that they want to be like the lone, you know, hero, Che Guevara, you know, kind of thing. And the reality is that everything really works and functions when it's collectivized. So our coalition has 7 organizations that serve on the steering committee, and that was done by a collective vote of all the organizations. There were like 65 in the beginning, or a little bit more now. It kind of goes up and down because there's some that have disappeared for their own reasons, some little small, you know, grassroots orgs. But nevertheless, that's kind of some of what we learned. But like changing how we're training people is changing. It has to change too, because in the beginning, getting on the megaphone was something that would work, right? Right now, you know, they have evolved to snatch and grab, you know, figure out, there's no due process, like figure it out later. You know, you got people who are citizens sitting in detention centers for a week. You know, they're, you know, beating people up before figuring out who they are. I have a coworker who's, you know, on Labor Day, the family went out to go have like a little barbecue at one of the nice little river spots over here. And because, you know, her boyfriend is Black and her family is brown, they got harassed by the park rangers. Boyfriend got put in jail. Stepdad got taken to detention center. He was in crutches and had a huge gash on his arm, no medical attention, nothing. And he had already had a process of like getting his permanent residency, whatever. They did not care. He right now is in Mexico. I think like on Friday, it was official that he was deported. So anyway, so snatch and grab, you know, they're doing things like in Ventura County, where you know, they do what we call like a brake check, where they'll put the brakes so you hit, which then forces like a police report or like you know, exchange of ID, and then they let you go on your way. You think it's over, and then there's a warrant for your arrest because they have all your information because they got your ID, you know. So they just seized several phones and impounded a car in Ventura County here in California last week. So they're upping the fascism. So we have to start thinking more creatively also about how we're organizing and how we're patrolling, because we've always trained everyone to do right up to like, you know, the edge of your constitutional rights, right? To make sure you're not crossing the line to actually getting yourself a case, right? But right now we know that number one, these people in charge never studied the Constitution. It's very obvious from some of the things they say. That's number one. And then number two, like, I mean, they just don't care. Like they have, you know, the backing of our tax dollars, and, you know, to create all this terror. And when I say our tax dollars, like it's not just official ICE agents. It's not just ICE agents out there with the masks on their faces. You know, we know for sure that there are mercenaries on the street. You know, we've been saying it. We had thought originally it was going to be something that was going to happen in other states because we had heard about like bills in other states. But we know they came to California. We know they're in California. And some of the confirmation of that is a high school student. He's currently right now in detention center, barely turned 18 years old, was walking his dog at 7 something in the morning. 3, you know, like masked, plainclothes thugs came up to him, called him some name. He's like, that's not me. And they said, okay, they zip tied him. They go, we'll figure this out, you know, later. You know, stomp the ground for the dog to run off into the street, put this young person, he's from the country of Chile, put him in a vehicle, took him to a parking lot, and they just sat there for 15 minutes, joking and laughing about how they were going to get $1,500 for that weekend to go out and party. You know, it was thanks to him. And so he's sitting there zip tied, and then 15 minutes later, ICE vehicles show up with uniformed ICE agents. They did paperwork and then they exchanged him. So, you know, and this kid, he's like, you know, he's supposed to be a senior in high school right now. He does not know, he's not up to date on what's going on like we are, like all the ins and outs of, you know, what's happening with this ICE terror. And he recounted that story to his teacher who went to go visit him. So like that right there demonstrates to me that this is a real thing. The mercenaries is a real thing, and they do not have to follow the same laws, quote unquote, right, that the federal agents have to follow, even though we know the Supreme Court already said, you know, go ahead and just be racist and racially profile. Yeah, so that's some of the work. That's some of the stuff that we've learned. Sorry, I could just go on and on. It's just awful.
Thank you so much for sharing those lessons and reflections on coalition, the role coalition plays as well. We're really learning and seeing how important that is too. And yeah, a couple of follow-up questions. Really curious, and I'll put them together, take what you want out of that for an answer. What are some fronts, so offensive or defensive, migrant justice or beyond, that you think are priorities for our movement right now? And connected to that, you talked about coalitions, thinking cross movement. What are some of those fronts? What becomes possible when we're building at that level? And also, because BorderLinks is a popular education organization, you know, what role do you see popular education playing in movement building?
Yeah, I think that you know, like the educational piece, the popular educational piece, especially when there is you know, an attack on academic freedom right now. There's an attack on ethnic studies. There's an attack on CRT, you know, critical race theory. I definitely feel like the popular education spaces are gold right now. They're golden, like we really need them. They're very important because people need to understand what's going on. And so I always say that like people understand like in their bones that something is wrong. They could feel that things are wrong, but we have to be able to talk about it. We have to be able to study it. We have to analyze it. We have to learn from things that have happened before to have the words to explain. And once we can like explain what is going on, once we can understand and see and understand the system, understand the how like these racist thoughts and ideas are passed down, how the laws are being generated or like not being followed, like all of the different things, then you can start to effectively organize together. You can effectively, you know, create solidarity movements. And I think that's another thing about the popular education that's really important as well, and ethnic studies, right? Is that once you start to understand like the oppressions and the systems, you start to understand that all of us need to be working together, right? My issue of oppression may not be the same as somebody else's and may not be the same as this other's, but all of us together, right? In solidarity, like we are much more powerful. And I think that's where people fail. I think sometimes people fail in being too like micro and only caring about like their one little issue. And I think people also fail when they try to be the one person that's going to fix all the issues. And it's like, we need our lawyers, which we've seen, which has been so beautiful. We need our artists, we need our organizers and our activists, we need our intellectuals and our student. Like we need everybody on deck right now of every single ethnicity, of just like every intersectional identity and whatever work that we do, that right now is our hope. Like when I go to work, because when I'm at work, I can't show up to an ICE, incident, right? An ICE raid. But my like comfort comes from the fact that I'm part of a coalition. And if I hear of something, there's somebody who is willing to stand up and go and do the work that needs to happen. We've done all the background work. All the education has happened for them to go and to be able to respond in a way that is like, effective. But once again, like that is evolving too. And that's what we've been talking about, is like we have to evolve as well because they are. But literally the hope is all of us together. That's it, period.
Beautiful. Mic drop. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I wish we could spend hours and hours talking, but may there be more. Thank you so much for joining us. Please, everyone, help me in saying thank you to Lupe for joining us today. And I'm going to pass it to Lauren for any last announcements before we wrap up this part of our program.
Thank you, Lupe, so much. Why don't we just sum things up? We had another video that we wanted to show you all that kind of encapsulates our mission and some of the energy that we bring to it. So why don't we try to put that on, Kaylin, if your computer can take it? And then we'll kind of turn to that final push. I can check in after that to see if anybody has any other questions and things they want to talk through. And then we will just the sprint to the finish.
At BorderLinks, we educate people about border issues so that they can go home, take action, and we can achieve migrant justice.
Yo tengo mi testimonio, pero para mí tal vez no puede ser importante. Pero cuando yo lo cuento y veo las diferentes formas de perspectivas de otra opinión, veo que mi información es importante.
We envision a world where all humans are liberated and we can come together to create just policies for all.
And that's how I see BorderLinks in the future, continuing to be that hub for community organizations and just building that network.
We use popular education as our model, so we see, we think, and we act.
En BorderLinks, nosotros creemos que todos deberían de ver,
Pensar
y actuar.
Wonderful. Thanks for that. It's a really beautifully produced video. It's great to share it at every opportunity. So I guess the last thing, well, first, does anybody have anything they want to share with us about how it's been going so far?
Well, this is the most I ever raised. So far $200, which is not a
Tania!
lot, but still,
No,
I feel proud of
that's
myself.
awesome. It's
Thank
huge. Okay, it's been hard for me to keep track because I know that there are people who are still making entries into the spreadsheet. So continue to do that as you're able to. I know for a fact we've cleared $3,000. So, I mean, just sitting down for an hour, that is really nothing to sneeze at. So thank you all so much. I will say there was a question earlier in the chat about how if we like how they should be putting people's names down. Like, can they just use first names, last names, initials, this and that? And I would say, and a message to that was that I'm comfortable with whatever they're comfortable with. But that just means that it's especially on you to make sure that you are updating the spreadsheet and keeping track of what they're pledging and donating, because if I don't have their full name, then I don't necessarily know whether the donation I'm receiving, who it belongs to, you know what I mean? So so yeah, please represent people however they want to be represented, but that just means that some of that administrative work is especially on you. So thanks for that. Thank you for re-adding that link. Ren, how about, I'm also just having fun. You know, I did a BorderLinks delegation a long time ago, and this has been an opportunity for me to make phone calls to old friends, like to old college friends that I haven't talked to in years. And so that's been kind of fun too. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to share? Well, wonderful. I think with that we can kind of conclude the public event portion. Oh yeah.
I think Kaylin, and also
Oh.
there's a question I just saw from Tracy. I left messages for lots of folks. Shall I follow up when if they don't call me back?
Yeah, I would say so if that feels good to you. What I tend to do, being a millennial and all, is that I send a text message because it's a good way to reach people. But kind of whatever works the best for you. Yeah, Kaylin,
Yeah, I just wanted to take a couple minutes before we switch over to the last sort of big push that we're going to making phone calls, to thank everyone who is involved, who made this possible. Thank you so much, Language Justice Collective, for being here, for making this as accessible as possible. We really appreciate you. Thank you, everyone who signed up to volunteer. Literally couldn't have done it without you. Thank you for everyone who donated and helped push us towards that goal. Our amazing guest speakers, who were all amazing and incredible. And then, you know, thank you to the incredible team at BorderLinks, and especially Lauren, who spent so many hours coordinating and putting this together. Lauren is amazing. And this type of work thrives best when we're in community with each other and working together to achieve a common goal. And so it's more important now than ever for us to be showing up for each other. And so, yeah, we're going to switch over to making one last big push to make some phone calls together for the next half hour or so. So thank you to the audience members who joined us for this middle part. And then Lauren, I don't know if there's anything else to add before we officially switch over.
I simply just wanted to say again, so many thanks to Julie and Daryl too for their matching gift. We're going to work really hard to honor it and to keep those donations coming in. Okay, hop 2.